Welcome back for the last round of Swiss, round 5 here at Balance Patch. I'm Jacob, joined by Naheem, ready for an exciting win and in set. Both these players, 3 wins, 1 loss. The winner will guarantee their spot into the top 8 bracket after this. The loser still has a chance, 3-2, depending on the resistance. Their opponent's win percentage may be able to find their way in. But very exciting here match coming up between Dakota Kelly and Gabby Snyder.
Yes, it's gonna be a great time as usual. But I'm really interested in seeing what these teams are on the field. Oh, it looks like we're gonna get an Ursa Luna here of the Blood Moon variety. We take those.
A couple of very interesting archetypes for both. Dakota running a pretty fast, pretty offensive Sun team, which we'll be able to see here in a couple of minutes. Gabby choosing to run that Ursa Luna Blood Moon with the Fergaraf. You're likely wanting to slow things down, switch the dimensions. We've seen Trick Room clicked a couple of times on stream today, but no teams that are really dedicated to hard Trick Room. So it'd be very interesting. Of course, Gabby does have faster modes. There's the Urshifu that has the Focus Sash that is likely trained to be pretty speedy. There's a Choice Specs Fluttermane, which we know is one of the fastest Pokemon in the format naturally. So there is certainly room for Gabby to play outside of Trick Room, but the core of that team being the Fergaraf and the Blood Moon Ursa Luna, that's going to be where she gets a lot of damage put down and where I think a lot of the progress is made on her side.
One thing I really love to point out is that the steady flow of the team building isn't like, you don't see a lot of hard Trick Room teams anymore. It's more like a blend of what you need for the situation. And it's that flexibility that you want. But right now, hold on, is that a walking awake over here?
Yeah, Dakota's team, I guess, isn't necessarily the pinnacle of flexibility, as there's really the one mode. He wants to go fast, he wants to hit hard, he wants to move first and take KOs with things like the Choice Specs Fluttermane, the Life Orb Walking Wake, and the Raging Bolt, all of which benefit from their photosynthesis abilities in the sun set up by either Torkoal or the Tornadus.
Yes, this is a very powerful looking team. Once that sun is set up, it's off to the races for sure. And of course, you can't sleep on that Torkoal with that eruption button. It's a good button to press, man. It does a lot of damage if you leave it unchecked.
Yeah, and then really a great answer to the kind of Trick Room option that Gabby has on her side, where if Gabby sets up the Trick Room, all of a sudden we have this Torkoal with the Flame Plate boosting the damage of the Fire-type moves from Torkoal, clicking Eruption in the sun. Torkoal is likely going to be the slowest thing in the field for either of these two trainers. And you'd imagine, Gabby definitely has to be careful about that option that Dakota has if she wants to set up Trick Room and sweep with the Blood Moon Ursa Luna.
We also talked about how Walking Wake was a bit of a counter early on to a lot of Pokemon in the field, even though you don't see it quite often. So I'm really glad we get to showcase it in a battle today, if it's taken into battle, of course.
Yeah, we can only hope, but the Walking Wake does do a lot of damage throughout Gabby's team. Of course, has super effective Water-type moves into the Ursa Luna, into the Incineroar, can hit the Ogerpon extremely hard with a Life Orb and Photosynthesis boosted move like the Draco Meteor or the Flamethrower.
Or the Flamethrower.
That it is also carrying. Just a lot of ways for Dakota's team to deal damage and to have positive damage trades, especially early on in the game, if Gabby needs extra turns to either set up the Trick Room or to get some speed control in one way or another going with something like an Icy Wind on the Fluttermane.
One thing I definitely want to see again is this Raging Bolt as it comes into play right now. All day, just outperforming, honestly, just taking hits, and that's what you really want to see in your Pokemon variety, right? You want to be able to survive long enough and put a lot of pressure in terms of speed control, in terms of spread damage, in terms of even having that priority.
Yeah, this is another Raging Bolt holding the Assault Vest item. It does have Snarl on the moveset as well, which is going to be great into the special attacking Fluttermane. Of course, Fluttermane, as it stands right now, able to do super effective damage into Raging Bolt, but as we've seen throughout multiple rounds on stream today, I don't know if super effective damage into Raging Bolt is really all that super
is it really
or effective.
It's just damage, I guess. It's not great damage, it's not minimal, it's just damage.
It's damage. The one kind of drawback is that Raging Bolt doesn't naturally have any recovery. No way to recover its HP, so any damage might stick, and that's likely what Dakota's thinking, switching that out into the Torkoal.
What an interesting decision. Gonna go ahead and bring out the Harsh Sunlight. Wonder what you were thinking about when making a change switch. What do you think the idea is? Of course, photosynthesis will trigger here for your Fluttermane.
And so we can see that on Dakota's end, the Flutter Mane gets the special attack boost from its photosynthesis ability.
That's right.
While Gabby's gets the speed boost from photosynthesis.
Alongside that specs, that's going to be a lot of damage coming up from this Flutter Mane.
That's a lot of damage on both sides, threatening. Gabby's, of course, will move first because of the speed boost from photosynthesis. As it clicks Moonblast into Dakota's Flutter Mane, and that's a heavy amount of damage, but now Dakota firing back. Choice specs, photosynthesis boosted with the terrestrialization.
One-hit knockout almost immediately. We just got here.
An extremely, extremely strong Flutter Mane as the knockoff comes out, and we'll get rid of the Flame Plate on this Torkoal. Probably not the most impactful use of that knockoff,
Sure.
as now the Flutter Mane on Dakota's side is still going to be the fastest thing in the field, and looking at the options that Gabby has to bring in the back, there's really not a way to outspeed that with what's left.
Well, at least you do mitigate the damage of an eruption possibly as well, so there is also that. You gotta check that. So a lot of value there in that terms, but obviously they were going for that Raging Bolts Assault Vest there, and that's what you really wanted to get rid of.
And now a Helping Hand just to boost the damage from Flutter Mane even more. If Dakota's able to get the targeting right here, as Fergraf clicks Protect.
Moonblast, it goes right into the Protect. That was a good Protect here for that Fergraf. Gonna stick around a little while longer while we do get this knockoff finishing off the Flutter Mane.
Wow, and honestly, I wasn't sure that knockoff was going to be able to
I
get
wasn't
the
sure
KO
either.
with the Fairy Terrestrialization. I guess, an indication of maybe the attack investment on the Incineroar for Gabby, or, the lack of defense investment for Dakota's Flutter Mane. But now the issue with Dakota's team is, you knocked out one of the incredibly strong Sun Sweepers.
Sure.
Look, I've just got another one. There's a Walking Wake right back here. And again, getting the special attack boost from Photosynthesis, just going to be able to dish out so much damage, especially with a move like that Hydro Steam, the signature move for Walking Wake, that is water type, but instead of having its damage reduced in the sun,
it's gonna get boosted.
It just gets boosted, and it does so much more damage, especially with the Helping Hand from Torkoal. I would be shocked if we see all four of these Pokemon remaining with some HP after this turn.
Honestly, I really gotta say I like the Helping Hand from Torkoal, but we're gonna get a Protect here instead. Might be the right idea as Hydro Steam comes out on the other side, and that's a lot of damage.
Ooh.
That's a lot of damage. 17 survivability, we'll take that. And Party Shot, where's it going? Into the wrong
Into the
slot!
Torkoal.
Oh, that's not what you like to see.
No. The Hyper Voice comes out there. No Trick Room option for Gabby. Still respecting the Torkoal, covering for the Protect there. This Fergraf now does get its boost to its Throat Spray, boost to its special attack. Becomes a lot more scary, and potentially now threatening a knockout onto the Walking Wake with another Hyper Voice. But still not a great way for Dakota to deal with this Incineroar with the option that he has available to him right now. Outside of the Walking Wake, the Torkoal only is carrying Fire-type moves. It's to protect the Helping Hand that we've seen, as well as Eruption and Overheat. So no super effective damage from the Torkoals, something like that Earth Power that we see Torkoals generally carry, into the Incineroar on Gabby's side.
And another thing too, Fergraf already used that valuable resource in the form of Protect, so you're not going to be able to do that with 100% rate at this point. As a Helping Hand comes out, this is going to be a big move. Maybe going into the Incineroar slot instead, which it will do super effective damage. And goodbye Incineroar as another one-hit KO comes out into this game.
Wow, and now we've seen the move that Gabby is locked into, going to be reversing these dimensions, making the slowest Pokemon move first, and for something like the Torkoal that Dakota has been able to keep relatively healthy so far, things get very, very scary if you are this Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Well, at least you have that solace that you might have gotten some of Torkoal's damage here, right? So even though it's going to be going first as the slowest Pokemon on the field right now, it's not going to do as much as a full HP Torkoal. But
certainly.
It's still going to be a lot of damage.
Yeah,
it's still going to hurt.
The question is now, there's a little bit of a call that has to be made from Dakota's end, as well as Gabby's, on who protects on Gabby's side.
Right.
Because Dakota is threatening huge damage with that Eruption that would be more than enough to knock out this Fergraf at low health. It will likely not be able to pick up the KO on this Blood Moon Ursaluna because of the lower HP on Torkoal and the lack of a Flame Plate on that Pokemon.
Ooh.
You would think something like the Overheat into this Blood Moon Ursaluna would be able to pick up the KO, but Torkoal does just protect to scout out on this turn.
Choreograph did go for the protect here. So where did we go with the crashing wake? Hyper Voice is going to be blocked. Will that be enough to KO here?
I would be shocked if it's not. This is a Terra Normal boosted Life Orb Hyper Voice, and yes, we did see the critical hit, but
I don't think it was necessary.
Again, I don't think that damage was that extra 1.5 times was necessary. The Sunlight has now faded though. That's very important if you are Gabby, because now you're able to not have to deal with this Raging Bolt that has the Photosynthesis boost to its special attack. You don't have to deal with the Torkoal having the sun boosting the power of its moves. Again, the Blood Moon Ursaluna still has the option to protect this turn if it is fearing something like that Overheat from Torkoal. But outside of the Sun and without the Flame Plate, I'm not sure Overheat would be enough for Torkoal to pick up the KO.
Yeah, not impossible, but it's definitely a lot harder for Dakota now, as most of your resources have gone away, and there's their Eruption. That's just not enough damage.
Not nearly enough. The Burgraph does go down, so now with the Terra Normal, the normal type Terastallization committed onto Blood Moon Ursaluna, can be hit by an electric move from this Raging Bolt. But Raging Bolt just showing why it's been so valuable, taking next to no damage from that Hyper Voice. Really no more options here, as Thunderclap is going to come out from Dakota's side. Again, Blood Moon no longer a ground type, will take damage from the electric type Thunderclap, and Dakota Kelly will win game 1 with Torkoal and 3 special type attackers that all benefit from having the sun on the field.
We see it time and time again. It's those special attackers that barely have any checks. Maybe if they make an Intimidate version of a special attack drop, that will see a lot of play, because special attacks are pretty powerful. As
we've seen throughout the day, and even with things like the Assault Vest,
there
are ways to mitigate that damage. You only have one of those. For Dakota's side, he has been able to use the Assault Vest on the Raging Bolt. Took very, very little damage from that Blood Moon Ursaluna, clicking the Terastallization boosted normal type attack into it. But there are still so many options that both players have. If the Fergraph is able to stick around a little bit longer, now Raging Bolt no longer has the threat of clicking Thunderclap in the end game. There are all kinds of things that can go different ways here. For Dakota, though, I think the real key in that first game, and why he has been able to be so successful so far today, is that he covers a lot of different speed tiers with his Pokemon. He has the Tailwind option to be super, super fast. We've seen in that first game that all 3 of the Pokemon, the Fluttermane, Raging Bolt, and Walking Wake, all receive special attack boosts from Photosynthesis. So none of them are, the fastest that they could ever be. But you have the Tailwind that's able to cover for that. You have the Torkoal, which under Trick Room is going to be the slowest Pokemon on the field. And the Incineroar, of course, just helps, as we've seen throughout the day, with your positioning and with controlling the board state with things like Fake Out.
And we saw how it was a little awkward for that Fergraph. Click that. We did commit to the Trick Room. If I got the fastest and the slowest, it don't matter, do it?
Yeah, if you have both that Fluttermane that's going to outspeed everything and the Torkoal, you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place there trying to set up Trick Room. So I think there are, of course, decisions that Gabby can make, trying to prioritize knocking out the Torkoal as soon as possible, trying to knock out the opposing Fluttermane a little bit earlier, as we saw just in that first game, that the Moonblast damage trade is something that really favors Dakota's side, because his Fluttermane is significantly stronger than Gabby's. So we'll see how this thing shakes out here in Game 2. It's been a great day so far. We've seen a lot of great Pokemon, and really, I'm just hoping to see a Game 3 in this set as always. I love seeing that high pressure. This is the win it in set. Seeing 2 players being pushed to their limits and forced to play some of their best Pokemon in order to continue on with their tournament runs.
That's what we all want to see, just some grind. You know what I'm saying? The grind game is where we at. That's what I like to see. But the leads have changed here for Dakota, now coming out with the Crashing Wake and, of course, Raging Bolt on the screen.
Yeah, Gabby, choosing the same leads. The Incineroar and the Fluttermane took me a second because they just switched sides.
Yeah. No, it makes a big difference, huh?
Yeah. Well, if there's a Ditto on the other side, any kinds of things could change.
Yeah,
But
you know.
this Flutter Mane would seem to be in a great position. You know, it threatens super effective fairy type damage onto both of Dakota's Pokemon on the field. They can't both Terrastalize to get away from this weakness, although of course we can likely guess what a fairy type resist that Dakota has in the back in the form of that Torkoal, likely being brought again to this game.
And the HP drop on that Torkoal didn't quite matter either in that first game, so maybe bringing it in here might be good for you too. Who knows?
No switches though for either side, as we'll just see immediately a Terrastalization. This one going to come out on Gabby's side, this Flutter Mane, the fastest Pokemon on the field. We saw that she committed to the Terra Fairy Terrastalization, going just to try to get off as much damage as that Flutter Mane can, though Dakota has also committed to Terrastalize. It's going to be either the Raging Bolt to a Fairy type or the Steel type Terrastalization for Walking Wake, now turning that Fairy resistance to the Fairy weakness to a resistance.
I like the decision making here because that makes that Flutter Mane change not so effective like that Fake Out.
Yeah, now a Moonblast coming out. We'll see the target. It goes into
the Raging Bolt!
And a clean.
That wasn't even a critical hit. That was a one-hit knockout.
Wow.
Whoa, that's the first time we saw this today. Kudos out there to Gabby. That's a big showing. If you can OHKO
and Assault
Raging
Vest,
Bolt?
Raging Bolt.
Come on, dude. Like, that's damage.
We've seen this. We've seen Raging Bolts throughout the day take Landorus Earth Powers and shrug them off to KO back.
Moonblast.
But a Terra Fairy Choice Specs Moonblast picking up the one-hit KO. And we got confirmation in that first game, too, that this Flutter Mane on Gabby's side is still the fastest Pokemon on the field because it will outspeed Dakota's Flutter Mane on the other side.
Yep.
Of course, Flutter Mane for Gabby is locked into that Moonblast. It'll be doing not very effective damage into the Walking Wake. But that Steel-type Walking Wake doesn't really want to see a Flare Blitz coming out from the Incineroar on the other side.
Not even close, as another Moonblast will come out here, and oh,
not quite enough for the one-hit KO. The Dazzling Gleam now just
good damage.
Solid damage.
That's really good damage.
And the Hydro Steam that targets into the Flutter Mane doesn't pick up that KO, and now leaves this Walking Wake open. If it was a parting shot into that slot, okay, I was thinking it opened for something like that Flare Blitz to just do a ton of damage.
If that was a Flare Blitz into that slot, that would have been the craziest call out, because you don't want to just click that kind of button. You want to make sure it's going where it's going. If they had switched out, you lose out on that damage and kind of. But now we have Switch Initiative. We can bring something in like this for Farigiraf. There's two really fast Pokemon on your opponent's side here, so a Trick Room. Well, actually, I think your Flutter Mane's faster, so you probably don't want to Trick Room. But
yeah, Gabby's Flutter Mane has been confirmed to be faster than Dakota's Flutter Mane. And Dakota likely still has that Torkoal just waiting in the back for a potential Trick Room to be set up. I think Gabby's game plan has been revolving around just trying to deal fast damage with the Flutter Mane, try to knock out everything early in this game so that you don't have to set up Trick Room at all.
You know, I kind of wish we didn't bring the Farigiraf into this game. I feel like this would have been better served to a different Pokemon. Maybe even like an Ogerpon.
Yeah, I think there are all kinds of options, all kinds of decisions that could be made. I think the Farigiraf still covers for the, I guess, 1 in a million chance that Dakota decides to not bring the Torkoal to this set.
True.
It still covers for some options as...
Oh, it's bulky too. I mean, if you take a hit, you take a hit.
It is at -1 on the special attack stat for the Flutter, or for the Walking Wake. As now, we've got now a +1 Farigiraf.
That did a good amount of damage despite a resistance too.
Despite the resistance, can click either Hyper Voice or Psychic into that slot. Torkoal comes out. It's not going to really matter for the Flutter Mane on the other side, as it's just going to boost the speed. It was already the fastest thing on the field anyway. But boosting the special attack stat, or actually, will it boost the special attack stat? No, because of the special attack drop on Walking Wake, its speed was then the highest stat that it had, which now the Photosynthesis boost activates there. And a play that I'm sure Gabby saw 4 turns ago whenever she clicks the parting shot into this Walking Wake, knowing that it wasn't going to get the special attack boost anymore.
Oh, but that could be huge.
survives.
We can get a KO from Walking Wake here as the Hydro Beam comes into that Shadow Heart. And now that's the KO over here too. Very well done.
Dakota does finally pick up the KO. The unfortunate thing, though, is because the Walking Wake is holding the Life Orb item, that recoil is going to pick up the KO on itself. And now, since Trick Room was never set up, now this Torkoal is just kind of a sitting turtle on the field. It's the slowest thing.
We don't want a sitting turtle, especially one that's on his back.
Oh, no,
that's kind of the situation here.
That's a ton of damage from the Hyper Voice, too.
Oh, but that overheat right back at you.
Good for Torkoal for picking up the KO, but I just don't know if it'll be enough. You know, likely the Blood Moon Ursaluna in the back for Gabby threatens the super effective damage with this Earth Power and should be enough just to wrap this one up. And just like we were hoping for, send us to a Game 3 in this back and forth set. But yeah, I think the big difference in this game was Gabby's prioritization of just getting damage down as early as possible with the Flutter Mane. The early terrestrialization is something that is very, very scary to lock into, especially whenever you have a Pokemon like Blood Moon Ursaluna, as Torkoal just clicks helping a hand here, you know, just so it has something to do before it gets knocked out. But
I want priority.
He's like, here, I'll help you get the KO. We can send us to Game 3. But the Flutter Mane, because Gabby knows that her Flutter Mane is going to outspeed all of the Pokemon that Dakota brought to this game, she knows that she can pretty safely commit the Terrestrialization just to get down as much damage as possible early on, trying to pick up KOs before Trick Room needs to be set up, so that you don't have to set up Trick Room once the Torkoal hits the field. Now, the question is, Dakota, seeing that game plan play out for Gabby, how does he adjust to that? Does the Torkoal come out maybe a little bit earlier in the game just to put on a little bit more pressure like it did in Game 1 with the extra damage output that things like the Walking Wake or the Flutter Mane can do?
One big thing we need to make sure is not to let our Raging Bolts get OHKO'd in 1-0. That traumatized me, I'm not going to lie to you. Now, you can bring that out and bring in that Torkoal. Maybe that's the earlier switching that we're talking about that might be needed, right? Because then you would have resisted that fairy move instead and maybe not taking all that damage. But I don't know. That's
it's still difficult because Torkoal is not known for having the biggest special defense stat in the world. The Terra Fairy Moonblast is still going to do a lot of damage to that Pokemon. The Moonblast from Gabby's Flutter Mane just is so strong in this matchup. You know, maybe makes Dakota think about, do I want to go with the Tailwind mode? The issue of that being, of course, if Farigiraf is going to come again to this game, if you set up Tailwind, it doesn't matter the speed stats of most of those other Pokemon. You know what?
I'm glad you brought that up because now that can rectify what I said earlier because maybe Farigiraf is coming for that reason. I'm making sure you don't bring that Tailwind. Yeah. I don't want that option on the table. We're going to play it nice and fair. We're going to play some good old Pokemon. My natural speed is faster than yours, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, you know, don't have to worry about the issues of dynamic speed or anything like that.
No. Don't get into click a button. You're going to click a button. I'm going to click a button. That's it.
Yeah, I think the big issue on Dakota's side is that there really isn't a way to guarantee the one-hit knockout onto this opposing Flutter Mane. Your biggest damage dealers are all special attackers, and you know, the Walking Wake, the Raging Bolt, and the Flutter Mane, and none of those, you know, outside of Dakota's own Flutter Mane clicking the Terra Fairy Moonblast into Gabby.
That was pretty good the first time.
None of his Pokemon really threatened that one-hit knockout just because of Flutter Mane's high natural special defense. So do you consider maybe something like the Incineroar that can hit Flutter Mane on the physical side, especially if you get your Sun up? That Sun-boosted Flare Blitz is going to be doing a lot of damage to this Flutter Mane. You know, there are kinds of options that we see, and you know, we do see right away.
Are you a magician? Did you know?
I think I'm about 3 for 3 on those kinds of calls.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah, sure.
But it is Tornadus and Incineroar right away, and we do see, just by the Intimidate's order going off here, Dakota's Incineroar's Intimidate acted first, so Dakota's Incineroar is faster than Gabby's Incineroar.
Are we going to click Tailwind? That's what I want to know. I don't think it's a great idea, but...
Yeah, and even if you do click Tailwind, is your Incineroar going to be faster than the opposing Flutter Mane?
It may or may not be.
I
don't think it will be.
I would be a little bit surprised if the Incineroar, even under Tailwind, outsped this Flutter Mane that we know is trained to be very fast. We do have a Sunny Day go. No fake outs on either side. The Sunny Day boosting now the power of a Flare Blitz that is likely going to be launched into this Flutter Mane. Terra Fairy Moonblast comes out. It'll go into the Tornadus.
It's the Tornadus, and it survived. Oh, that's not good. This Flare Blitz is gonna do a world of damage, but not enough to OHKO. The insane on this Flutter Mane.
And that's the huge benefit of this this -1 attack from the Intimidate from Gabby's Incineroar. At neutral attack stat, that Flare Blitz is going to KO Flutter Mane 10 times out of 10. But because Dakota's Incineroar now is at -2 attack, becomes a lot more difficult to deal with this Flutter Mane. And yes, you still have that Tailwind option, but look who's coming out to counter that.
Exactly. Now, this is, as I said earlier, we want to make sure you don't think about clicking that Tailwind option, because you don't want to get punished by this hypothetical trick, of course. But that does allow. Oh.
And it is going to be Trick Room straight away. We see Gabby lock in there pretty quickly. Felt like a pretty confident Trick Room selection.
There's no way. I mean, you wouldn't click Tailwind. No, you wouldn't do that, right?
I don't think so.
I
don't think Dakota would click Tailwind here just to respect that option from
yeah,
Gabby.
Absolutely.
Maybe Gabby is saying that, from Dakota's side, maybe you're not carrying Torkoal on this game. That's
interesting. That would be a very interesting call out here.
A Moonblast going into Protect on Tornadus. Dakota, living to play another turn as a parting shot now comes out into the Fergaraf.
I like this decision that will negate essentially that Throat and Spray.
And if this is going into Torkoal on the turn that Trick Room is set up.
Oh, that's pretty good. There's no way. Oh, that was a little too spicy. That was a little too spicy. Yo, I would have walked out. I promise I would have walked out. I'd be like, all right, you got it, bro. Dakota's the best player ever.
The issue, though, is Gabby's side really doesn't threaten too much damage, though. The Fergaraf can click a Hyper Voice here to knock out Tornadus, but you're not doing any damage to Flutter Mane.
No.
Gabby's Flutter Mane is at pretty low HP. We know Dakota's has the special attack boost from Photosynthesis as well as the choice specs.
Sure.
Going to be able to do just a ton of damage this turn. And importantly, too, even if the Fergaraf does target into Dakota's Flutter Mane, clicks a Psychic into that slot, or Dakota chooses to commit Terastallization here so that you lose the Ghost typing, this is still going to be a -1 attack from the Fergaraf coming out in the Flutter Mane, and we do see no Torkoal from Dakota's side.
But we also don't even know which Flutter Mane is faster or slower here. It could be.
Okay. Well, we do know that Dakota's will be moving first.
Oh, okay.
We know that Dakota's is slower because the Flutter Mane for Gabby's side has gotten the speed boost from the Photosynthesis.
Yes, that's right.
And the Dazzling Gleam should be enough here. It will knock out the Flutter Mane.
As well.
Good damage into the Fergaraf. The tricky part now is Gabby's gotten in the position. There is no Torkoal on the other side. There is Trick Room set up. You have 3 turns now to click the extremely powerful moves with your Blood Moon Ursaluna. Is this going to be enough for Gabby? Will she be able to convert on these turns of Trick Room? Importantly, without the benefit of Terastallization to boost the power of this Blood Moon Ursaluna's attacks.
I gotta say, Raging Bolt might not be impressed with the damage that Ursaluna throws out here, especially if you're gonna be taking that damage reduction because of a spread move.
Absolutely. We saw how little the Terra Normal Hyper Voices did to Raging Bolt in that first game. Without the Terastallization boost, Raging Bolt, and I would think even an Earth Power probably isn't the scariest thing in the world for that Pokemon.
He said you're not going to click the normal button. Tornado.
Tornadus
Okay.
Likely coming in just to buy a turn of Trick Room here. Or, yeah, to waste out a turn of Trick Room, as Raging Bolt will commit to the Terastallization. It's going to become the Fairy type, just in case an Earth Power came off into that slot. And Gabby, of course, we saw lock in the Hyper Voice, covering for the Terastallization there.
Yes, I like this place. Let's go for a defensive Terra. Raging Bolt still takes a hefty amount. That's a good chunk.
I'll say that is more than I expected it to take. The question is now, though, as Psychic comes out.
Ooh, that's a KO range. Oh, that Snarl could be huge.
Snarl could be huge, but it does not KO the Fergaraf, so you don't have the threat of priority moves at this point. However, now Incineroar does come back out. The problem is that because the Fergaraf is still on the field for Gabby's side, you do not have you don't have the option to click Fake Out into either one of these Pokemon. Now, the Incineroar, though, with the Blood Moon Ursaluna at -1 special attack, will likely not be KO'd by the combination of a Hyper Voice plus 2 Hyper Voices from the other side. The issue though is Trick Room turns are waning here for Gabby. She's losing HP on these Pokemon. Once Trick Room ends, the Flutter Mane on Dakota's side is fairly free just to start clicking Dazzling Gleams until the game's over.
I'm not too happy about switching out the Luna here either. That's another turn of wasted Trick Room. That's not what you want to see here. But at least Farigiraf can go ahead and do a decent chunk of damage. But again, as we saw earlier, Raging Bolt just does so much. Maybe Gabby was trying to dodge this parting shot that she knew was coming. Probably didn't have the faith in the Hyper Voice going to KO and Incineroar in that situation. So trying to preserve that special attack stat for Ursaluna.
I would think this will likely be a Snarl from this Raging Bolt. A pretty safe move. It is the Snarl, not perfectly accurate. And
that's not good for Gabby. What she wanted was that free switch from the Farigiraf fainting there and bringing in that Ursaluna back onto the stage for that last turn of Trick Room. But because it dodged, now it's still on the field, and that's not how you wanted this to go.
Wow, so this is the last. Yeah, this will be the last turn of Trick Room. Flutter Mane is a Ghost type, immune to the Fake Out Pressure. How will these two players manage this turn? Because this is a Farigiraf, that I believe is at neutral special attack stages because of the Parting Shot, but also the Throat Spray activation. This Incineroar is at -1 attack stat, so I'm not sure even the double up into the Flutter Mane will be able to pick up the KO as Raging Bolt swaps into this Incineroar.
Okay, perhaps we're going to see a Dazzling Gleam coming out from this Flutter Mane to try and go for a KO here on Farigiraf, but...
Yeah, I would think so. The Dazzling Gleam fairly safe here should be more than enough to pick up the knockout on the Farigiraf, as Psychic does really not that much damage, and a knockoff now resisted by the Incineroar that switches in. We'll get rid of the safety goggles. Don't really have...
Moonblast!
But a Moonblast into Farigiraf.
Okay, it went into Farigiraf. That's the most important part. We don't want a random new Trick Room to go up.
Oh, yeah.
That would be horrible.
Oh, that is priority number 1, is preventing another Trick Room from going up, because now, as we've seen, Dakota's Incineroar is faster than Gabby's Incineroar. So all of Dakota's Pokemon remaining do outspeed all of Gabby's Pokemon remaining. Those speed interactions extremely, extremely important here at this stage of the game. And importantly for Dakota, just got Incineroar onto the field this past turn, has Fake Out Pressure, and will use it into the Blood Moon Ursaluna this turn. Moonblast going into the Incineroar and doing so much damage.
Oh, just not enough damage from that response in knockoff though. The item not even being relevant anymore. It's just not going to do what you needed to do, and now we're in a bit of an awkward position because we can't just simply click on the normal type attack and hope that Flutter Mane just goes away.
Well, of course, the ability for Blood Moon Ursaluna allows it to hit Ghost-type Pokemon. The Mind's Eye ability allows it to hit Ghost-type Pokemon with normal moves. The question is, will it be able to even pick up the KO, as the Incineroar is knocking off the Life Orb, which will significantly reduce the damage that this Blood Moon Ursaluna can do.
Oh, and it does get a KO here.
It does KO the Flutter Mane, but Incineroar surviving at a pretty safe level of health. And now you have your Raging Bolt coming back out, preserved for this end game, just for this position, able to come in. The issue is that you have no 100% accurate moves from Raging Bolts.
A crit can do really good right now, but
that's only if the Ursaluna is allowed to move. The Snarl comes out a little bit more accurate than a potential Draco Meteor, and putting it in range of the Flare Blitz to pick up the KO as Dakota Kelly weaves his way through the Trick Room mode that Gabby had brought out, even without Torkoal, to find his way into Top Cut with a 4-1 record at an incredible set for our last of the Swiss round.
Very well fought. It was definitely looking like a sided for Gabby at some point, but man, just at the end, Dakota was able to pick up some pieces and just make a really big push.
Yeah, even without bringing the Torkoal to that last game, really looking like he's leaning a little bit harder onto the fast mode with the potential tailwind from Tornadus, allowing him just to put on a ton of pressure, force the Flutter Mane on Gabby's side into some awkward positions early in the game, and then was able just to get as much value as he could out of the last couple of turns of Trick Room in order to sweep afterwards. But something that we also want to talk a little bit more about, if you're liking everything you're seeing here today, you want to get involved more here at Balance Patch, and especially with the Pokemon video game circuit, the next event being held here for the video game is going to be the Mid-Season Showdown, hosted once again by our wonderful TOs, Marshall and Gerd, here in the same place at Balance Patch in Allston, Massachusetts on March 17th. At the same time, a 2:30 p.m. start time for round 1, so be here a little bit earlier if you'd sign up. But absolutely, I'll be here for that event. I'm excited to be playing in that one.
I'm gonna be here for that event too. I gotta see it. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm coming in just real quick. So I originally set a 60-player cap. It might just go down slightly to 56, just based on like totaling the amount of chairs and tables we have accommodated for in the venue. So, but we originally normally have Premier Challenges as 32, just to keep it like. Time-wise, it's not the greatest to start in the afternoon for a 5-round PC top 8 cut, which is 3 rounds by itself. But we're going to do a 56-player cap for the mid-season showdown.
That's more people than the 32. I'll take it. I'll take it. That sounds like good numbers to me.
I was trying to do that math off the top of my head. Which one was but no, the 56-player cap, very important, though, for these players chasing World Championship invites, because the cap being that high, if we do reach 48 players, would allow for the top 16 to receive championship points, as opposed to the 32-player cap, which only allowed the top 8 to receive points.
So if you're looking for those last-minute points, this is the place you need to be at on March 17th. Don't forget about that.
Yeah, it's another Sunday. At, plenty of time on that day. A 2:30 p.m. start time, so right in the afternoon. And very, very excited for that event, and very excited for Top Cut coming out here. I think we've seen already on stream some really incredible players, some really interesting teams, and especially seeing a player like Dakota move on into the top cut bracket using just more strong special attacking Pokemon that we've seen throughout the day on that Sun team is just a very fun style of Pokemon.
Very fun style indeed, but we will come back to it. For now, we'll catch you later.